야야. 아니, 만도다. 단도 저로서 내야 이때 시즘에 또 만도 지 양내 제당이 개지셔 와. 이때 시즘아. 이나야 이때 시즘만 나와야. 다 만도다 친밀론지로만 나와야. 아니 저주지 센시네. 아니 셰발라비 rumba telya 주소 다시 그가 있어요 말이야. 단도지가 그래서 제주 뜻은 나서나 그만하면 저주 먼저 봐. 내가 봤는데 자세 dom발라 덤바타빌라 왔더니 디노는 있어요 말이야.
어래.
이제 일단 안도 주소 주포때 아니 바 로르첨보 바카콘 이제 시지 말이야. 주소 주 카콘이 이렇게 되시자 말이야. 일단 난 주소 그 개첨보 들었잖아.
Geshe has been talking about how to practice the instructions that are found in the Foundation of All Good Qualities, one of the texts that we have in this book. Actually, when you look at the stages of the path that are shared, or the stages of the path for a person of great capacity, and you find that after you have developed the mind of enlightenment, then you go on to train in the 6 perfections, like, for instance, generosity. So properly speaking, after you have awakened the mind, you go into how to practice each of these. But this isn't actually mentioned explicitly in the Foundation of All Good Qualities. They don't mention each of the 6, they only say that even if I develop only bodhicitta, but I don't practice the 3 types of ethics, I will not achieve enlightenment. With my clear recognition of this, please bless me to practice the bodhisattva vows with great energy. So, thinking that it's so important to understand how to practice the 6 perfections like generosity, etc., Geshe has supplemented the presentation found in Foundation of All Good Qualities with the presentation that is found in Lama Tsongkhapa's text, the great treatise on the stages of path to enlightenment, Lama Chenmo. Like Geshe is not explaining everything that's found in that text. Yeah, of course. Rather, he's taking brief excerpts out from it so as to supplement the material.
Oh yeah. 근데 이제 먼저 주변에 제가 수수진 저다 코로나로 요요 봐래. 안 당하나지 대비녀를 제가 어두서제 뭐제 제발 사타를 와. 그래서 주문하라. 이번에 전에 개최쇼도 가려야 이거. 센지들. 센지한테 유소 주문을 더 많이 봐. 말씀 요래 가르쳐놔야. 센지한테 아니다 말소리야. 개최쇼도 잘 못하네. 아니 센지들 누상 아마도 다리 되지나. 아니 단다. 강 투두 봐. 또지 같은 거. 세워담. 아니지. 결혼수를 아니 손들이야. 센지 개천보이 봐. 손수 봐지. 교나요. 자와체네. 로즈미 다른지 갖고 안 어디서 나와요. 데이터. 안 갖고 상관을 기시했다. 데이터. 안 다시 뒤선 말이야.
Geshe has already introduced us to the practice of generosity. The practice of ethics is found here in the text, as we just saw from the verse we read. Then, of course, you have the practice of patience. So that brings us up to the practice of joyous effort, which, of course, of the 6, which is the most important. Perhaps joyous effort is the most important of these 6 to practice. For, it's sort of what gets you to engage in, what starts you off on practicing the other ones. So in the hopes, Geshe has been talking about joyous effort over the past few times that he's come, some weeks ago and 2 weeks ago. The topic of his discussion was joyous effort, and he has dwelled upon it in the hopes that we come to see just how important joyous effort is. He hopes that in dwelling upon this subject, that the way we come to regard and perceive joyous effort changes so that we see just how vital and central it actually is. So Geshe talked about it too about 2 weeks ago, and we'll just pick up straight off from there.
Okay? What do you say? Senji is an Senji said, Senji go. 이놈아, 다 로리 전부 코로 사실 나리야. Senji 중고. 아니 Senji 셰비 타. 로아.
그래.
아니 Senji 야와. 어두스제는 마 사실지요. Senji 중고 세래. Senji 시탄이 Senji 중고 가르랬더니 길 자와 가리나야 될라야. 쪼이 참바데 Senji 중고를. 네? 만도 셰타지.
In the Lama Chenmo, Lama Tsongkhapa's great treatise on the stages of the path to enlightenment, he gives 3 sections to talk about joyous effort. He talks about the nature of joyous effort, then he talks about the methods for developing joyous effort, and then he talks about the divisions of joyous effort. Now the nature of joyous effort is that it's a mind or a state of mind that delights in virtuous activities of whatever kind. That's the nature of joyous effort, which Geshe already explained.
Okay? 어두스래. Senji 중고. 아, 다 Senji 야와 될라. Senji 야와 될라. 만도 같은 좋다를. 돼요. 고치 Senji. 아니 다른 준비 여치디지 Senji. 아니 Senji 대제지 Senji 있으네. Senji 숨을 잡아.
We also covered the divisions of joyous effort. We talked about armor-like joyous effort. We talked about the joyous effort that gathers virtuous dharmas. We talked about the joyous effort that works for the benefit of sentient beings. Yeah?
단단히 간다. Senji 요래는 주비 탁. 이빨이 다시 니빠지.
그래.
다시 니빠지. Senji 요래는 주비 탁 되려와. Senji 요래는 주비 탁데 아니 Senji 좀비 배도 Senji 마 좀비 예미 제니 아니 대 광고야. 대선은 또야. Senji 좀비 배.
In between these 2 sections, there's a section entitled Methods for Engaging in the Practice of Joyous Effort. What methods can we use so that we can engage in joyous effort? Well, the author gives 2 points to think about. He says, reflect upon the benefits of working with joyous effort and the drawbacks of not doing so. So we need to meditate on the benefits and the drawbacks.
딱 말해서 남비치고 전화 담아이나 산지 셔졌다 산지 셔졌다 냐면 말해서도 년도 강화매 번여모 우정화도 전에 가서도 년도 요아래 그거 그러와 딱 산지 셔졌다 사지 타래 말해서 단다야 되제요 네 세지 좀봐도 맞춘디 배에도 내미 난다 세월.
At one time, the person we know as Buddha Shakyamuni was, just like us. He had the very same kind of lot that we do, and that he did not have this freedom or autonomy, you might say. Rather, he was controlled by disturbing emotions and all the rest. But he was able to rise up above that, and to overcome that, to become a Buddha. These are the benefits of working with joyous effort and the drawbacks of not doing so. It's that clear. All of the good qualities that arise with respect to the teachings arise in dependence upon joyous effort. The lack of having such qualities is due to not working with joyous effort. So when we find ourselves without good qualities, this is due to the lack of joyous effort. So this has already been discussed. The benefits of working with joyous effort and the drawbacks of not.
아니 겨치지 진짜 대제지 저였어요. 전지세요. 배 남도 몇시 잡다를 때문에 더 타래. 내가 고차이 전지세야 돼. 가르세나 샤와 가르이나야. 아니 내려야 아니지 또 만년 받쳐야 돼. 고차이 로아.
어리.
네? 고차 기니. 전지 고차티 기니. 전지 말했었지 겨치지세지 소고 녀래져야 돼. 진짜 대제세지 진짜 제야야. 아니 칸나 마토와도 만지바잖아. 진짜 제야야. 저도 제야 돼. 아니 진짜 대제지 전지 있잖아. 어때니데 녀래기지도. 네? 남게 시작하지.
in the third section, the divisions of joyous effort, there are two parts. There are the actual divisions of joyous effort, and then there are the methods for developing joyous effort. Well, Geshe has discussed the actual divisions. Yeah, we talked about the armor-like joyous effort, the joyous effort that works for that gathers virtuous dharmas, and the joyous effort that works for the benefit of sentient beings, correct? But just in brief, what is the armor-like joyous effort? Well, it is the armor that you wear to prevent your joy from declining. Yeah, so that other circumstances cannot, overwhelm you, so that you lose the joy that you put into virtuous things. So you don this armor to prevent the loss of that joy. Yeah? And therefore, donning this armor and engaging in practice, the 6 practices like generosity and so forth, is the armor-like joyous effort. The joyous effort of gathering virtuous dharmas refers to engaging in the practice of those those 6, like generosity, with joyous effort and a special motivation, and so forth. How can you be sure that you don't lose that joy? Well, mainly by understanding the good qualities of the practice. So you have to understand what results you get from practicing with joyous effort. You have to understand the good qualities that arise when you engage in things with joyous effort. In short, you develop wisdom, so that with wisdom you understand what you get from the practice, the good results, the positive qualities, and then you use that knowledge to make sure that your joy in engaging in things with joyous effort is not lost. Just simply reading books or listening to teachings, it's difficult for that to prevent a loss of joy. You really need to have the wisdom that understands the good points and results that come from the practice.
Okay? That's not need to repeat. That usually that's usually Geshe forma dang, ani tiche pungi so sa ba ken, rawa. Ani usually dela teni tenji holomba. Deli ani little say less runya, ta tenji yungarawa. O dei ta, o tenji sashi je. Ta di sashi je de kachen doji ta.
Peji tambo de dikola dotsa inju. That brings us to this next section, the methods for developing joyous effort. Now here there are 4 sections. First of all, you abandoning, that is, getting rid of adverse circumstances, and then bringing about the conducive circumstances by gathering the collections. And then you have working intently or persevering at joyous effort. And finally, you have developing what's called flexibility or workability. This flexibility of body and mind, workability of body and mind is one of the results of joyous effort.
Oh, yeah.
So we've gotten through with the first of these 4. Is that right? Yeah.
That's Geshe forma sayate mutushu mizuwa te pumbi ta te ba niche rawa mutushu mizuwa.
When we look at getting rid of adverse circumstances, we must consider 2 things. First of all, we must recognize what is incompatible with joyous effort, and then we have to look at how to get rid of those things.
Oh,
yeah. The main thing that's incompatible with joyous effort is laziness. Laziness.
내리온 그러와 저 니바 토야 아니 문주바당 어떤 만져보고 간저 니가 말했었네 그러와 아니 신바신 아니 문주바 다 전다 리니용 거래.
In short, this laziness might take two different forms. The first form would be, even though you see that you're capable of engaging in the practices, you're capable of practicing the path, that you don't do that. Even though you see that you're able, you don't engage in the practice. The second form it might take is a thought that, someone like me is not capable of practicing these things. There's a sense of discouragement. Or as we've been saying, you shrink away from the practice. Even though, so the first kind is you see that you have the ability, but you don't engage in it, and the second type is you question whether you have the ability to do that, and so there's a sense of discouragement or shrinking away. We are definitely subject to this, seeing that we're capable of doing it but not doing it. I mean, if you think about your own experience, it's quite clear that this happens to us, right? What happens then when even though we see we're able to do it, we don't do it? Why? Well, sometimes it's because we think that, I'll do it later. I'll do it with time. In other words, we procrastinate. Or that we might think that Excuse me. So then the second type is when we get lost in inferior activities, that we get drawn away and sucked up into inferior activities, and therefore, even though we see we can do it, we don't.
Okay. 아니 내가 타마 니가 내가 타마 아니 배 포지티브 쇼를 넣어야 만들 세 버려.
그래.
야. 네게티브 세주까지 뭔가 요나야. 이 원기 아니지. 니가 내가 네게티브 쇼를 넣어야다. 아니 맞지 받다. 라지 타마를 그마자. 내 전지치 만들 세 버려.
It's obvious to all of us that the more familiar you are with positive states of mind, that the happier you are, and the more your physical and verbal actions tend to be positive. Where that's clear to everyone, isn't it? And that the more familiar you are with negative states of mind, then the more your physical and verbal actions tend to be negative, the more unhappy you are, and the more problems there are for both yourself and others. That's clear, right?
Yeah. Yeah. 포지티브 세주도 네게티브 세주니 보때 놀래 제제 요방 가서 하는 태과 제투도 와. 포지티브 세주도 눈이 용도 권리 제되나? 검자 해야 돼. 내가 간도 검자. 검니 권리 제나? 아니지. 건도지라 포지티브 세주 망아. 제투 받아. 네게티브 세주 갈게나 유를 넣어야 요같이. 근데 지금 태과 제투도 그건 늘때 만도 디센 당금은 줄 상도 와면은 와면은 따지만 디센 라디치를 제거와서
It's also really clear to us that, or rather I should say, that we can pretty much guess that we have some choice in the matter of positive and negative states of mind too, don't we? That we do have some degree of choice about which of these we want to cultivate. That's what meditation is all about. Is developing a positive state of mind, trying to increase these and become more familiar with them. So even though we can pretty much guess that we have some choice in the matter, that we put it off, that we don't do it. Sometimes thinking, I don't have enough time. or that, oh, you know, I'll get to it. I'll set some time aside in the future, and then I'll really work at it. But we do this, don't we? Even though there is some choice in the matter. This is what's happening when we don't practice, even though we see that we're capable of practicing. This is the type of procrastination that you see. That either it's putting things off to a later date and thereby procrastinating, or whether it's getting wrapped up in inferior activities and putting it off for that respect. So, in order to overcome this, we think about how valuable or how difficult it is to find the leisures and opportunities, and how meaningful, that is to say, how difficult it is to find a human life with leisures and opportunities, and how meaningful it can be. Think about death and impermanence and the sufferings of the miserable realms and these types of things. These are all methods to help us overcome that first type of laziness, which Geshe believes he explained when he was here last. Correct? We covered that, didn't we?
Tashi garse goro chigi nyole di yete de shigu wa chigi nyole se ate kalla be wa do na se zombo zo ya se zombo chene jala pento je ya do na ngalso no ja jidel ya shamba da ni je da minju da ani chi ju so nyole o tunzo chi te ta gewar ro wa chigi nyole re te tunzo la ani jeba kariyo ba pento kariyo ba tunzo macheni ja ba ina deli dosho ani 마루스 우지리야 네게티브 가르가르 용무요가 근데 시바잖아 근데 샤왕에 맞대 뭐 샤왕에 맞지 볼은 것 거대한테 뭐 용거로 와
The main way to deal with procrastination, that is to think about death and impermanence, for instance, and these associated things. Then, of course, what do we do when we get wrapped up in inferior activities? Well, the main way to combat that is to understand the good qualities of practicing the teachings, practicing the Dharma. What is practicing the Dharma all about? Well, it's about developing your mind, developing a good heart, improving your mind, working for the benefit of others, engaging in practicing virtuous things like generosity and the other six. Now, these are all virtuous actions, aren't they? Mm-hmm. So we need to come understand, first of all, what Dharma practice is about, seeing how it's about developing the mind, trying to help others, and act in a virtuous way. And then understand the good things that come from doing this. Yeah, like loving, like, for instance, understanding the benefits of cultivating loving kindness and compassion and all the rest.
Shimpi le lo se ta jin manda wo chi jin ni ma re nya me de ma zo mo ta shu chen bo yong ya ta de te ma zo pe na san ji ju kombo se ona ta bi kombo se de shi ja yu wa ro nu mi shu ne
ore
de ja vi di kan ya ta san ji ju kombo se de ani che de ni ta shi bi kombo chi re de o ta te ta shi bi chi kombo shi bi chi ta bi kombo se de ni mo ma li pa sa ne zo che ba kombi kombo che la ya ani 하바 저기 왔을 때 어떤 디상아 만들고지 두 마리 녀비 토자라 미니 아니 레버지 이런 거로 와가 심바치 된구가 전부 토자라 미 심바.
So understanding that, we were once again faced with a choice, and we try to choose the positive ones, do as much of the positive and virtuous activities as we can. But then we look at the third type of laziness, which is a laziness of discouragement, or a laziness of shrinking away from what's required or from what we strive for. This is something a type of laziness that involves the thought that, oh, I'm not able, someone like me isn't capable of doing something like that. So in Buddhism we talk about achieving the state of a Buddha, achieving the state of liberation, for instance. And you look at what Buddhahood actually is. It's a state of consummate knowledge, love, and ability. Wisdom, compassion, and ability, we sometimes say. You look at what liberation is. Liberation is a state that you achieve once you've abandoned all disturbing emotions, together with their seeds. And you think about what you're trying to attain, Buddhahood, liberation, and you think, oh, somebody like me is incapable of doing that. So, which is something that we feel, right? We think that, oh, I'm not able to achieve such an exalted state. So this is a form of discouragement that, or better yet, a case in which you're shrinking away from the thing you're trying to attain.
Oh, yeah. Marusu Sanjay Rik, Dito Sonatani. Marusu Sanjay Yeshinchene, Say Yobi, and Sanjay Yeshinchene, and San Jarusumba. Don't bus Gansaburo. But Tama each, but not time bus Chuchu each, Sama, and San Jaru Resigo. Roa, Sanjay Kombutoya Resigo. They Yona, and Marusu Murray, Delhi to Toya Yogura. Then this Sonotani, Sanjay Rida. 아니 산지의 저승도 말에 산지의 진짜 인신체네 가가 산지를 이수샤야래 내가 지체도 리파이어를 야 산지 무슨 매실 나가야 말에 근데 손도다니 아니 레벨을 심박가 봐.
To overcome this, you think about your Buddha potential, also known as Buddha nature. Right? Buddha said that every sentient being, first of all, has a mind, and any being with a mind is fit to become a Buddha. Any being with a mind can become a Buddha, down to the smallest insect, on up. The Buddha said that even insects are fit to become Buddhas. To say nothing of us humans, who are much more highly developed. Of course, if they can do it, so can we. So we think about how we're fit to become Buddhas.
마루스 메이즈 다니 고치 쭈고 사지주 공포 사야테 서야가 고치 지 고치 저것도 따고 단다 아니 저 맞추나 아니 야 맞지 분노로 들을 샤바이나 야 고치 소야 깔아 가버려 그러와 근데 이따 마루스 센테 마루스 우지라 샘지 마루스 센테 포지티브 슈 세주도 로 이디가나 할 레바 야버려지요 네게티브 세주 로 두자 시비지래지요. 근데 네게티브 세주도 포지티브 세주도 루지다 뭐봐. 생기 루지를 쉬어야 말아.
이야 말해.
내가 있다. 뭐봐 있다. 지 매가 저지요. 지치 부지요. 제가 로자도 도자 여봐 있다. 아니 진짜 tunzusono tambaina 아니 내가 다들 손니 봐.
So I've forgotten what Geshe said at the end. That I remembered, and Geshe just concluded by saying that that by thinking about how we are capable of becoming a Buddha, because the Buddha doesn't just lie, and the Buddha had reasons for saying that every sentient being can become a Buddha. He didn't just say it offhandedly. There's a certain logic behind that. So we think about these teachings on Buddha potential, on Buddha nature, to overcome this discouragement we might feel in light of the object, the things that we're trying to attain. So we think about these, that now that we're a human, that we need to make a start to try and achieve Buddhahood. Because we're not animals. If we were to put it off now that we're humans, it would be very difficult to make progress, in that, with that type of life. So we make the most of being a human and get a start to progress towards Buddhahood. So, and we can do this by working with the states of mind. Because if we cultivate positive states of mind, our mind can develop extremely well. It can become very, very good. Whereas if the mind starts becoming habituated to negative states, then it can become very, very bad. But the thing is these negative states, or excuse me, these states of mind, both positive and negative, are adventitious. They come and they go. So the negative states of mind that arise don't actually stain the nature of mind itself. That rather, they arise and they pass away. So that we can make some choice, that we don't want to maintain and cultivate the negative states. Rather, we want to choose to engender and maintain the positive states. So because we have some choice over what type of states of mind arise and we become used to, and we make that choice to familiarize ourselves with the positive so that the mind becomes more and more positive, and we make that progress towards becoming a Buddha. Thinking about this, Buddha nature, the ability to choose the states of mind that we become familiar with, we overcome discouragement about the goal. Buddhahood is a result, isn't it? Which means that it arises in dependence upon certain causes. So that if you gather all the necessary causes and conditions for Buddhahood together, then Buddhahood will be achieved. The result will be established. That's the way it is. Even if you say, no, don't want it. If the causes and conditions for Buddhahood come together, then Buddhahood will happen. Now, if you think about this then, that Buddhahood, take Buddhahood, it can be achieved because it's a result. So you simply think about the fact that that all it requires is getting the causes and conditions together, and then you will achieve it. All results that we see around us in the external world and so forth, the rise in dependence upon causes and conditions, and we're quite certain. If the causes and conditions for something come together, then the result arises. Yeah? Is that something you're sure of? This is a reason that can then be applied to Buddhahood. By thinking about Buddhahood and how it's a result and how it can be achieved, then there is some sense of hope, isn't there? You do have the hope that you will one day achieve that. So it's important to think about this. That we're able to become Buddhas. The Buddhahood is a possibility. That we can indeed someday achieve it. And don't leave it at what Geshe said. Read through many texts. Continue to think about it so that you understand really why it's a possibility, how it can happen. So a person might then have a sense that the result can indeed be achieved, but but maybe I can't. I'm not able to train in the causes that lead to that. So in this case, the person is discouraged about the methods that allow you to achieve the goal. So you think about, oh yeah, well, okay, although it's possible to achieve that goal, I'm not capable of training in the methods required for that. For instance, if you think about the way that bodhisattvas practice, the bodhisattvas practice generosity so much so that they're capable of giving away their body and their own resources. They give away their arms and their hands. So you think about, well, I'm not able to give away my hands and my arms, or my arms and my legs. So although it's possible to become a Buddha, I'm not capable of accumulating the causes required for it. I'm not capable of training in those methods. So another form of discouragement can come about with respect to the methods required. Actually, the practice of generosity can involve many things. There's the giving not just of one's body, but also giving of dharma, giving of resources. So giving of resources, body, dharma, many types of giving that can be done. So a person thinks that, oh, that I'm not capable of giving such certain things. But there's a point that you reach where you're able to give certain things. If you think about the body, for instance, why is it that at present we find ourselves unable to give away our body? It's our attachment to the body. Attachment to the body prevents us from giving it away. So that it just stands to reason that if you were to overcome the attachment you have to the body, you would then be in a position, or you would have reached a point where you're capable of giving it up. So the point is that there's a time where you're able to give. A point that you reach where you become able to give away certain things. In fact, just, ordinary beings like ourselves aren't allowed to just indiscriminately give away one's body. Actually, that's prohibited in the trainings for bodhisattvas. What prevents us from giving? Oh, the fact that we're so fixated on pleasure, and we don't want to experience any suffering at all. So we're unable to give our bodies because in giving our body we would experience some suffering, and we don't want any suffering whatsoever. Also, our attachment to our body. Being so attached to our body, then we're not able to part with it. So attachment to pleasure. This being so fixated on pleasure, I should say. Attachment to one's body. And the fact that we do not want to experience suffering. These are the three main factors.
Understand? Roa, Nevala charges no your mapper. Taranashim be Lila may be Chapaya mapper. Chapatem was sooner? The name Marusu Karade. Rangi Nali, Tazi, Chalachi, Jendal Pachabata, Rangi Lichapa, Chimachi child. Karade Sena, do not own the land. Roa, Lila Machapa, Nevala, Deshila Machapa.
By developing the quality of compassion, we will eventually reach a point where we overcome this attachment and this clinging. So that eventually you reach a point where you overcome your attachment and clinging to pleasure and your aversion to suffering, so that you're capable, so that giving away, your body is like giving away, some object that you have in your house. So just as you would give away an object you have in your house, then you. Yeah. Even in particular, let's say it's something that you don't particularly like. You can give that away really easily, can't you? So it's like, oh yeah, well, no big deal. I'll give that one away. So the same way you can give something like that away, you can give your body away. So by overcoming the attachment to one's body through cultivating the practices, through cultivating compassion. What Geshe was talking about is this third point he mentioned, where what we call accepting suffering. So, one of the things that prevents us from giving at present is the fact that we don't want to suffer. So through the cultivation of compassion, we can overcome that so that we are able to accept suffering. If you think about the way that you can give an object that you're neither attached nor cling to away, then you can pretty much conclude that if you overcame your attachment and clinging to your body, you'd be able to give it away in the very same way. Anyway, think about that.
Okay.
The point is that if you reach a certain level of practice, there's no hardship, there's no difficulty in giving away your body. So don't worry about it.
Okay?
It's possible that we will begin to feel discouraged about the methods required to achieve Buddhahood. But this is a case of worrying about something that you don't need to worry about. Because once you reach that level of practice, it won't be an issue. You'll be able to do it. And before that, you're not allowed to do it. So don't worry about it.
Okay?
So you think that with familiarity, and I'll eventually be able to do so, engage in such practices, and then I can deal with it. But of course, if I am to achieve Buddhahood, then that means that I am going to have to work for the ultimate welfare of sentient beings. Now, to be able to do that and develop my own ability to its utmost extent, I'm going to have to give up self-cherishing in exchange for cherishing others. So that I cherish others, and I begin to work for their benefit, and I become indifferent to my own welfare. Which means that whatever is required to benefit sentient beings, then I'm going to do it. Wherever suffering sentient beings are, then I'm going to put myself in those places so that I can work to relieve their suffering. So wherever they suffer, wherever there are suffering sentient beings, that's the place that I'm going to need to be. And you think that, boy, how difficult is that? Because at present, if there's a way that we can get around these, places that involve suffering, then we go for it straight away, don't we? And we try to avoid those places. But here, so we think that, if I'm going to work for the ultimate welfare of sentient beings, and I'm going to have to be in places of suffering, then you think, oh, that's too difficult. I don't think I'm up to that. I don't think I'm capable of that. So this is another form of discouragement. Feeling discouraged about the place where, the place where you work for the benefit of sentient beings. Places of suffering.
Then shimgo mares. Then shimgo ba karere sana. Tangi tite. Ta tite si kandi ti chera tengo budite. Dusio. Dipat posh gyo dumame.
Ore.
Kepishana magame.
Ore.
Agosoma.
Ore.
Marusu ani sosi ngene dipat choni masaba ita. Senche duma na senche dunyon na ya. Marusu duma traze yo nyogo ma. Kaisana? Duma dipi duma diparawa.
Ore.
Dipa pomba ita. Dipa ponshera. Duma me.
Duma me. Keep it.
Maseba chige senche dui 타란 개바이나 아니 강가 요 말에 그거와 뭐가 되니 무서워 춘 용거야 말에 근데 일단 말로서 녀래가 셀라네 아니 코인네 세제가 된다 센제도 녀도 네발라 강가 춘이야 말에
once again we don't need to worry about those kind of things. And now there's a verse that neither Geshe nor I remember who actually said it, but they say that because there are no negativities, there is no suffering. Yeah. Or excuse me, because they have given up negativities, there is no suffering. Because they are knowledgeable, then there is no dislike. So, suffering results from negativities. But when you reach a certain point, you no longer engage in any negativities whatsoever. So even if you are in a place where sentient beings are tormented by suffering, you don't undergo or experience that much suffering at all. Because you've completely given up the negativities which cause that suffering. So that even though you're there with the suffering sentient beings, you yourself are not suffering a great deal. What's more is that you become very knowledgeable or maybe skilled in the way to tame sentient beings. You become very skillful in the way that you work for their benefit. So that there's not a lot of hardship. You don't really dislike the work because you're very skilled and knowledgeable about it. So because you've given up negativities, there is no suffering. Because you are knowledgeable or skillful, then there is no dislike. So there's no need to worry about or be discouraged about living in places where with sentient beings. Because once you reach a certain level of practice, there is neither suffering nor dislike.
가르쳐고 두마 만나와 용한테 디냐라 되는 소바. 근데 이따 라소시 두마 빠사나 디파 빠사나 아니 라나 두마 용야 말.
If you with suffering, if you get 10 people together, you've got different types of suffering there. Yep, each individual has his or her own type of suffering. What is that an indication of? Well, the fact that suffering is a result of the negativities and the negative things that we ourselves have done. So that it would be impossible to experience a type of suffering that results from some negativity or negative action that you yourself have never done. It's just not possible. So what does that lead us to conclude? Is that if we ourselves don't engage in negativities, then we are not going to experience the suffering that results from those negativities. I mean, that's quite clear.
Okay. Those lelo shimbi lelo sa shimbi lelo. Ona par dani la ni bi lelo ya tege. Manda bu chi tu mare sen so ya tu chu zen ro a. O te chi ya mare sen. Ta manda bu chi tu mare gar tu mare jebel ta na ya tu mare. 하라 때나야 그거 말해. 그러와. 근데 네비 내가 때나야. 이제 대주가 깔아가 버렸어네. 무슨지 심바시아 연구 누나? 무슨지 심바도 바까네. 아니 무슨이야. 주
This type of laziness is known as the laziness of shrinking away, or laziness of discouragement, sort of looking down upon oneself. Yeah. With this type of laziness, you don't give yourself enough credit, or you look down upon yourself. So this discouragement might arise when you think about the result that you're trying to achieve. You might be discouraged about the methods required for achieving that result, or you might develop discouragement when you begin to think about the places that you need to be in order to work for the benefit of sentient beings. So if this type of discouragement starts to arise, you think about the different points that Geshe has mentioned to overcome that laziness, and then do whatever you're capable of doing.
Okay? Or that does it. Mutushu Mizuata, Mutushu the Roa, Ani Lelote, so Lelote Caridesana, Ani Shimi Lelo, Mankata, Shishoji Lelo, Ani Shaw Membala, Chabi, Shaw Membala, Ani Moko, T Lelo. Antana Jibi, the Shimbi Lelos, Roa, Shimbi Lelote, and Anzi, other G. Marutu Rajuji, Otanga Pachoboy, or not G. The last one standing on the yap, Chino Chevalaya, but Chichi Leon. The day is done, or the day is your mother, Leon.
These are the main things that are incompatible with joyous effort. These different types of laziness. You've got the laziness of procrastination. You've got the laziness of being wrapped up in or lost in inferior activities. You've got the laziness of discouragement or shrinking away. For instance, now, if you look at this last type, a person might think that, I'm just not smart enough. I'm just not intelligent enough to do this. But that type of thinking can be an obstacle to practicing the Dharma, can't it? Mm-hmm. So it needs to be overcome. These are incompatible. These types of laziness and ways of thinking are incompatible with joyous effort. When having identified these incompatible things, we need to try and stop that and develop a sense of joy in virtuous actions, so that we can try and establish some type of foundation of joyous effort. Now that we have this good opportunity of being reborn as a human, it's a very important opportunity. Okay. Maruso, sonu shada matona, ani ale nyalia champaya yo dos kanga tal chayu wa. Okay. O temandu kharele champ aji woni jane champun bi shola yete shida shuchamo tamatu. Chala chapi chapala ya nyemute matuba. Di ongi madu champambala ya dos kanga ro chayu wa. If you don't think a great deal about it, then even giving up alcohol can be tough, right? I mean, think about it. Right? A person, if you're not able to think about the good things that come from giving up alcohol, and you're not really, you don't really apply any antidotes or remedies to the attachment you feel towards drinking alcohol, then the prospect of giving it up is quite difficult, isn't it? But I mean, forget about giving up your body. Try and give up alcohol. I mean, when you really think about it, giving up alcohol isn't all that difficult. But unless you really think about these things, it seems quite hard, doesn't it? I mean, if you're really clear, if you're really clear and honest about it, it's because of attachment, isn't it? Because we see the problems that alcohol creates, right? I first come to Australia. Australia, Nevada,
집에지 카피탈 빵고 카드요 알아. 어스트레일리아 빵고 때 무슨 말이야?
어디?
만서 니만테 가리라면 쉬워지라. 비스반이야. 이제 비스반 자산을이야. 그만 더 되니까 빼샷지 되지. 누구도 치킨 빼샷지 되지. 마하데. 어스트레일리아야 빵고지 두드렸어. 아니 정말 가는데 오스트레일리아는 라카메비 이쪽이고 아니 경고라는 경고 이쪽이고 아니 나서는 네발이 로로쪽이고 가는 방법 잡아래 장한테는 정말 깨졌지 잘해.
When Geshe first came to Australia, he thought it'd be impossible to have beggars in Australia. Impossible. Yeah, sure, India, Tibet, yeah, you get beggars, of course, right? But Australia, no way. Then he came into Brisbane one day, went downtown, and walking around, it was nighttime. Someone came up to him, asked him for some money, wearing very, very tattered and poor clothing, right? Asking for some money. And he just thought, what's this? Look, if you don't have a job in Australia, you get the dole, right? If you get old, then you get a pension. You become a pensioner. If you're unwell and you're sick, the government helps you out. You get a pension, sickness benefits. So how is it that somebody winds up as a beggar, he thought? Alcohol. After he asked, it became clear that it's through alcohol that people end up in that state, even in a country like this. Yeah. It's probably not only alcohol, alcohol, etc., right? There are those type of apparent, that is, obvious drawbacks or faults to it. I mean, what do you gain from it in the end? What do you gain from drinking alcohol? Well, some people say, if you go to a party, it's not really acceptable not to drink. But what's that all about? I mean, you can drink tea. There's plenty of fruit juice. There's all sorts of different things to drink. Why do you have to drink alcohol? If you really think about it. Yeah, so it's just putting it out there. I have to think about it. It's basically we don't really think about the faults that come along with those types of behaviors. Now, basically, when you take these type of mind-altering substances that rob the mind of its clarity and good judgment, you're basically wasting your life. I mean, that's the point, isn't it? Is that if you can't think clearly and you can't use good judgment, then you're wasting a good opportunity to make your life meaningful. And that's what we want to do. We want to live a meaningful life. We don't want to waste our lives. So that's the big drawback. So we try to, develop these positive states of mind. For instance, you stop laziness, and you try and cultivate a sense of joy in virtuous activities. Then engage in those actions with the sense of joyous effort. So anyway, this is just a short presentation of the things that are incompatible with joyous effort. Laziness and...
다 또지스니 로와 또지한다고 지다 도드나 미바도 땡바도 아니 가리 또도 저희 또스니 다 로르 주문으로야 지르무지 또지스니 그리 소용으로 와
미베도 가웨도 땡베도 단 토웨도
미비도 땡비도 아니 가리도 아니 타마데
토웨도. The next section deals with conducive circumstances, gathering the collections of supports and so forth. The Lamrim Chenmo talks about 4 powers. You've got the power of, I think they call it resolve. Do you remember the translation? In any case, that will do. The power of resolve, the power of, let's say, stability, the power of joy, and the power of relinquishment. Tambo de mi parwa. 만으로 무슨 네.
그래. 이제 서.
어디?
미빠된 자동이야. 덤바도 기빠지 못사. 저도 미빠된 덤바니 버스 차가 버스요. 저래. 이나야 니노나 미빠된 덤바니 기빠지 못사. 된다. 덤바세. 마루서 로와. 토자이 예때 덤도 제대로야. 아니 예때 임바 신이. 빠땡아 찌 터부는 니 제국은 냐데. 아니 미빠 로와.
Here in the text, it's the first power is called the power of resolve. But when it's described, you find that you're actually talking about the power of aspiration. Generally speaking, resolve and aspiration perform different roles. Yeah. But here they're being treated as the same. So the first power could also be called the power of aspiration. Now, what is this? Well, you appreciate or see the good qualities of something that you're trying to achieve. And once you see that there are good qualities to having that, then then there's that strength that, oh, I want that for myself, that I would like to have that. And so you aspire to achieve the thing and the good qualities that go along with it. So in other words, you fix your resolve on it. You aspire to it.
소제바 bomba, 마진바 렘바 bomba, 로예 bomba, 창 bomba 대가야로.
어디?
진짜 제제 알랭냐리야. 빵나 내가 이때 가는 두가. 로와.
어디?
진짜 빵구군 누냐비. 그렇지. 진짜 bomba라. 가보 제한테 좋아로와. 센지로와.
어디?
진짜 bomba라 가보 옆에 좋아. 센지. 이 이때 토네. 빵바 진짜 아니 간지 진도가. 그저 마포바체 간주 만주잖아. 가지 누가 빵비 예때다. 마포비 님이 토니. 어답지 통바대. 아 진짜지 나 진짜지 제고 빵부분도 냐 빌로데 미파레. 진짜 미파데 텐지 자쇼레. 된다. We
talk about giving up killing and giving up stealing, giving up sexual misconduct, giving up alcohol and the rest. So when you enjoying giving those activities up is joyous effort. Right? The delight that you take in giving up killing and all the other non-virtuous actions is joyous effort, isn't it? But you also think about, in order to do that, you think about, what good comes of giving those things up. Because you must ask this question, mustn't you? Like, what good is it to give up those non-virtuous actions? For instance, what good is it to give up alcohol or whatever? And what are the drawbacks if I don't give it up? So you understand the good qualities that come from behaving in this particular way. And then you think that, those are the good qualities from doing that. I want to do that. I also want to act in this way. And that's resolve, or aspiration, as it were. Yeah? So aspiration is actually a support for the joyous effort itself.
Understand?
The power of resolve, or you could call it the power of aspiration. That's also okay.
수제 빵바 저거지 더 잡아이나 그러와 딱 진짜 수제 빵바데 아니 떼보지 저거야 그러와 땜비도 진짜 이상 이 게위 샤워 가르는 유나야 만주 공라 알랭이야 소소로도 처음 두게 무두게 따치 지지 대나시 따치 제니 로도 처음 받지 누나 딱 하나 아니지 가서 보러 무투니 제투사레베 din 따제 저 진지 무투니 제투사 누서나 따제 샤와들은 주 차니 어떠냐 배 캘린더 제타를 와 따제 공부이 이제 캘 제타가 있나 너요 아니 따이나 소제타한테 뭐지 냐비 아니 때문에 제구가 때미도
The second power is what I call the power of stability, but I think is translated as the power of steadfastness. Yeah? Let's say that you decide to give up killing, and you make a promise that you're going to give up killing. You need to then be steadfast or stable in that promise. So, no matter what virtuous activity you engage in, it's steadfastness, yeah? Do you remember, Leo? Is that it? Yeah. Whatever virtue that you engage in, that you want to first make sure that this is something that suits you. So you think about the action that you contemplate, and is this appropriate to me? And that if I were to adopt this, would I be able to continue in it? But if the action suits you, and you think that you can continue in it without just giving it up. You start and stop. Rather than doing that, you're going to be able to be steadfast and continue in it. Then you engage in the virtue. So this is the power of steadfastness, is working out to make sure that the action suits you and that you're going to be able to sustain it over time. And this is very important.
genyu domba ro khen ba ina ani genyu domba te genyu domba khen le sha na yoju ga sina ya yoju domba nyo suna ya yoju domba le chu re sam na ma te bi to no so wa domba le sa ni o ta ta no yo mo nyo ba ji che nya be ro wa o te tembo chi ro wa te ke chmo.
So if you were to make that promise to not to kill, then you need to be steadfast so that once you've worked out that it suits you and that you can continue in it, then you do what you can to really keep that. So the power of steadfastness relates mainly to vows. Let's say you take the vows of approaching virtue. And once you've taken those vows, you need to guard them well and to be steadfast in it. If you weren't, maybe you would think that, look, if I end up losing the vow, because I did something that violates them, I could always take it again. You wouldn't have the power of steadfastness. Yeah? The power of steadfastness is intent on doing what you can to stick to the initial pledge, stick to the initial promise that you made. So this power of steadfastness is very important, particularly with vows and pledges.
sense 먹어도 셔시마라야 아니 지 소소 전자를 때문에 봐 로아 아니 진짜 탐을 셔와서 봐 어떤지 그 마찬 년바자를 했어요 근데 이따 전자 때문에 제약해 준 거지 때문에
if our promises are not very reliable, that is to say that we make a pledge and we don't stick by it, then that has an impact, of course on this life, also on future lifetimes. The impact is that it becomes difficult to stick to the pledges and promises that you make. So it's very important that once we commit ourselves to something and make a promise, that we stick to it, that we're steadfast.
Okay. This is the time I'm going to mena. Domba lena enda. Ano marzo ya chi soso chi changro do pamba ina enda roa. Nyali ya jaji ji che. Nyali ya jaji ji che ne. Ani chi pezu shibache. Yetezu shibache.
Ore.
Nyemi tu shibache. Pezu nyemi tu te sebo chi shibache ne. Jaji ya po chi che sa suna. Ta chi soso pa vi dikala. Ani pe chi karse borwa. Su tunasu. Tojaje. Su tunasu. 맞추나요? 아니야. 제야 말했냐면 진지전에 말에는 야 그래. 텐소도 제대 말에는 야 그래. 알랭이야 야 템포 지속 거래. 그래서는 텐소 티고 용조 묘도서.
So with this lack of steadfastness, then you will not be able to bring your projects and activities to completion as well. Now, with a vow or a pledge, before you take the vow, you need to organize yourself. You need to go through a preparation. You think about what are the benefits of taking and guarding this vow. What are the good things that come from taking and guarding this vow? What are the drawbacks, the shortcomings of not taking it or not guarding it? So you think about the benefits and the drawbacks respectively. If you go through this process and you end up thinking, well, if I can guard it, I will. And if I can't guard it, then okay, no big deal. You have doubt. It's better not to take the vow. If you have this type of doubt, they say that it's better not to take the vow. It's important that you be steadfast in the initial pledge that you make to guard the vow, come what may.
Okay. Domba said that Tanja, the Lisa, Tensoyona, and Toja, Delia, Temple Member Chasoyona. The Lisa Temple Member Zona, and Temple Member, Tanja Chan, Maternal hair, Temple Shada Member Jet, and she was Shumala, the Koju, or Chang Bajan.
A vow is essentially a pledge or a promise. So if there's doubt about it, then the promise becomes unreliable or unstable. So you end up, always unreliable, totally unreliable in this lifetime, and through the force of habit, unreliable and unstable in future lifetimes as well. So that's why, particularly with vows, that if you have doubts, then it's better not to take it in the first place.
Okay.
Because this getting into the habit of being unstable or unreliable places negative imprints.
Okay. That is guy to say. Guy to say, I'm going to Tony, Karsaguru. Shimbala so Patinju, Dudna, Susu Shalkaran and Junayo, that Toche Mutuba, Delia Monidone, Gawayo, Gawashe, Roa, Dudna, Mipito. The temple repichedo, only Sanotica Stepito, Roa, they need to touch it, a guy to say,
The third power is called the power of joy. So, this helps you to avoid losing the sense of delight that accompanies your virtuous actions, so that you don't fall prey to things like laziness and so forth, so that you are joyful throughout. You have this power, or that's what the power of joy is, this sense of joy. So first you develop the resolve or aspiration towards a thing as a support. And then to make sure that is stable and reliable, you have the power of steadfastness. And then the power of joy. There's a sense of rejoicing, a sense of enjoyment in what you do, in the positive, virtuous things that you do. The Lama Chemo gives an example. They say, like children to play, right? The children love to play, don't they? So that as soon as they get a break in their studies, they run off to go and play. At any opportunity, as soon as there's that window that opens up, then they go off straight to play whatever game it is that they like. So this is the idea: is just like trying to cultivate the same attitude about virtue that children have to playtime.
meditation chava ai roa study chava ai kari inayo 거기가 선택이야. 아니지. 매니저시 제안하고도 아니지. 어떻게 제안지 교육샤와지 줘야 돼. 선진다고 지고 하래.
Yeah, this sense of joy, so that whether you like to read Dharma books, or whether you like to do meditation practice, or whatever it is that one of these actions that you like, that at every opportunity, you go and you do those things, every chance that you get, developing that type of joy.
Okay? 가위 또 들리지 거 알아요. 된다. 자화자는 주파. 다 뒤들이야. 아니 돌이 또 어때? 돌이 또 어디? 다야. 마루수치 지 주구도 산에 개위샤치 주구도 산에 그 최고 자네. 내가 이제 강한 차이로 와.
네.
강한 차이들이 먼저 나서 자고 나서 거. 맞고 집에 강한 차이에 어디 잡아이나 아니지만 주님은 넣어 자. 근데 이따 강한 차이가 아니 나서 어떻게 나서니 나서다 용주 주파.
In short, the power of joy refers to the desire to engage in those particular actions, the joy that you take in engaging in those actions, as illustrated by these analogies. The fourth power is the power of relinquishment. Now, in engaging in virtuous actions, you might become tired, you become fatigued, so that when you become tired, you have a rest. You relax. As when you apply yourself to virtue, but then you get fatigued, and so you stop and you have a rest. Because if you continue to work and push yourself while you're fatigued, then you're not going to want to engage in that again. So when you get tired, you rest. And then once you're rested, you return to it. This is the skillful way to work with joyous effort. Yeah, there's a skillful way of persevering, and this is the skillful way of doing that. Bringing together the conducive circumstances, gathering the accumulation, the supports. The power of resolve, the power of steadfastness, the power of joy, and the power of resolve. So, engaging in things with a moderate or balanced, I should say, a balanced level of joyous effort. Not being too uptight about things, but neither being too lax. Because if you're too lax, then things aren't going to work out well, right? So finding that balanced or right level of joyous effort and sustaining it.
같이 단기 레로 숨 요바 같이 레로 숨보데 미즈니 아니 내가 안념보데니 이게 소소녀래 마 녀마치바 마 녀마치바 쟁에테 미피토 어때 데 바탕에테 고녀 녀래 제고녀 미피토.
A short summary. Now, for those of you who actually have a copy of Lama Tsongkhapa's Lamrim Chenmo, you really ought to read it. It's really an amazing text, a wonderful presentation of joyous effort and how to develop and sustain it. So please, if you have it, do indeed read through it. There are certain things that are adverse. Yeah, Geshe was giving a summary of the four powers. So there are certain things that are adverse circumstances, things that work against joyous effort. 3 types of laziness in particular. right? You remember these three? These three lazinesses are adverse circumstances. So that you want to overcome those three types of laziness and make sure that you don't lose the joy or the desire to engage in virtuous activities. That comes about through the power of resolve. The power of resolve helps you to sustain the joy and interest in the activity. So overcoming the laziness and engaging in it without losing the joy, the power of resolve. And then once you've engaged in the action, to make sure that you don't turn back, but rather that you continue on with it, you have the power of steadfastness. Then to make sure that you don't just give the activity up entirely, so that you don't just put a stop to it and not return to it, you have the power of joy.
Okay.
Then to make sure that you work skillfully with joyous effort, neither too uptight nor too loose, but rather working skillfully with joyous effort, you have the power of relinquishment. So working and resting and working and resting.
Okay.
These are the four powers. This is what they're like. What do you think? Three types of laziness, which are incompatible, and four powers, which are, conducive to it.
Okay. 만지니 캐파트족 러와 만지니 캐파트족 자 파세에서 쭉쭉 맞다봤지 수라나 아니지 제 무서야 다시지 저거라 파 잡범바제야다 수라나 제 무서야 니소지기 토네 아니 자도 타고 와라 내는지 만도 12년에 돼야지 가려래 녀모 탑이야 녀모 내가서야
어디서
내가 군소 맞아 차도 누들 제대로 만도 타고 거야 내 타고 여봐 일단 너 파 내가서야 집버스로 맞다 맞지 이 원기 소소 틀이야 내 안경만 다야 오케이 좀 보래.
The next section deals with how should I act when I'm engaging in things with joyous effort. So once I engage in the practice, how should I behave? What should I do? That's the next question. And the Lama uses an analogy to illustrate this. They talk about the way that a great warrior approaches a battle. That a great warrior, someone who is skilled in the arts of fighting, doesn't only try to defeat the enemy. One thing that they're trying to do is to defeat the enemy, but in the process they're also trying to avoid getting injured themselves. So rather than just simply trying to defeat the enemy at all costs, you try and defeat the enemy while avoiding getting hit yourself. Similarly, with practicing the Dharma, we're in a fight, in a struggle with the disturbing emotions. So we shouldn't think only about trying to defeat the disturbing emotions and overcome them. We should also make sure that we aren't injured, that we aren't hurt by the disturbing emotions. So just as a great warrior tries, has a two-pronged approach, trying to defeat the enemy while avoiding injury him or herself, so also we want to try and defeat the disturbing emotions without being harmed by them.
Okay? 자, 먼저 친년에 대해서 친세한테 아니 녀모 잘 녀모한테 아니 친 잘. 근데 이상 먼저 내가 타고 열어와. 이상 내가 하고 열 말해. 나서 맞잖아.
here we are talking about the Dharma, these teachings, and the disturbing emotions' enemy is the Dharma, or the Dharma is the enemy of disturbing emotions. Disturbing emotions is the enemy of the Dharma. And this is a fight. This is a struggle, and it's not an easy one.
맞아. 세미와다. 아니지. 늦게 쳤다. 아, 저번에 야지도야 쳤다. 검자로 와.
What?
검자디 가려야. 야 도와지려야. 진짜 타보다. 늦게 공항이. 야 내가 컴포지 사티로.
What?
어때? 자자죠. 소소문이 전에 잠바도 이제 친연의 지치고요. 지금 여기 있다. 지. 진짜 타보도 손에 군소 사야라고. 아지. 여기서 다 던지고. 너 드나지. 거기가 얘기 맞춰 같이.
Yeah, so we have to be careful. Like, you meditate so that you can develop an undistracted mind. You meditate so you can cultivate loving kindness and compassion. So when you sit down to meditate and do these things, you find that it's really noisy. It's possible to get angry at that point, right? You get angry because it's so noisy and you can't meditate. Be careful. You're meditating to cultivate loving kindness and compassion. So be careful that you don't, in the process, develop these type things like anger and so forth, because that is possible. Or there are people who have qualities similar to those of your own, or people whose qualities exceed those of your own, and you might be jealous, for instance, etc. All sorts of the other disturbing emotions you feel. So we have to be careful with these things, to take care, to make sure that that we aren't harmed by those type of emotions, to try and avoid or reduce those emotions as much as possible.
Oh yeah. 어두스제니다 도구 셀리 차서 타마서 다 디세데 예사. 그래서 얘네 약간만 가실로 탔어. 그러니까 도구 대샤샤.
We
이마들 가지 요아 있다래. 아니 셀리데 마주비. 아니 이제 매지만도 이 하고야 싫어하면 그러니까 도구 대샤샤.
We weren't able to finish Joyous Effort this evening, and the time is up. In fact, not only is time up, but we've gone over time by some minutes. Anyway, it seems that we'll be coming back next week, so Geshe will pick up from there and they finish off Joyous Effort. But, anyway, there's no need to actually finish the text, so we'll just pick up from where we left off. We clear about what Geshe discussed? Joyous effort is important. Sometimes, even if you have a good intention, the highest intention, things don't work out well. Why is that? Joyous effort. The lack of joyous effort. The lack of joyous effort stops it. So the practice of joyous effort is one of the most important. Of course, joyous effort is being presented as one of the six, like generosity. But actually, there's really nothing that doesn't require joyous effort. It's something that's needed everywhere, just like salt in food. Yeah. So we'll leave it there. Do you have any questions? So no questions. We'll leave it there.